CP2030 itself is a strategic plan that NESO has pulled together, essentially defining the amount of generation that's needed and where it's needed in the country. All projects are going to be impacted, including demand projects, indirectly, as the queue ordering changes, and in response to that, NESO and the transmission operators will redesign the planned reinforcement works and reassign these to the projects that are left in the queue following this one-off process known as the Gate 2 to whole queue process. So that's kicking off May, June this year. That we're expecting an evidence submission window where every developer will have to proactively submit evidence to NESO on the size of the project that they're intending to build out and the planning statuses of the project, as well as any requests to change its point of connection or accelerate its connection date. It's likely that a lot of projects will receive updates to the transmission enabling works for their project, which will impact the securities and liabilities that are associated with the connection offer.
So they're moving from first applied, first connected, where your application date determines where you are in the queue, to first ready, first connected. What it means is that your connection date is going to be reassessed. Whether you're connecting via a DNO, so distribution, or transmission, your connection date is going to be looked at. You're going to be assessed whether or not you and your project is mature enough and whether that connection date can be accelerated or whether you need to be sort of pushed back in the queue to make way for people that can. And so fundamentally this means that you're going to move from a solid connection date to a softer connection date. So the connection date that you have will likely change.
Later on this year, there is a one-off process known as Gate 2 to whole queue. So Gate 2 to whole queue is going to be retroactively applying a more stringent set of criteria to all projects that currently hold connection offers. And that's going to be about a 6-month process before updated connection offers come back. And for developers that currently hold projects, that's the best opportunity for them to secure a Gate 2 connection offer. After this, the approach that will be taken on how to apply for a connection offer to the grid, it will be moved to application windows. So a project can submit a connection application at any time and it'll be processed in batches every 6 months.
NESO have decided that what they're going to do to determine project readiness for the vast majority of projects is how advanced they are in planning status. They're deciding where projects are going to sit sort of within their strategic capacity buckets. So NESO have looked at the grid where they want it to be by 2030, 2035 and ultimately 2050. And they know how much BESS we're going to need, what sort of solar generation we're going to need, what sort of wind generation we're going to need, and they're going to start filling buckets with projects from that.
Depending on the technology type that you're applying to build, there's varying levels of opportunities for obtaining a Gate 2 offer in these subsequent application windows. So, for example, BESS technology, it's commonly known in industry that there's a massive oversubscription of the number of projects and the total capacity of BESS. And so there's going to be very, very limited options for BESS developers trying to obtain Gate 2 connection offers in the medium to long term. However, solar and wind offer opportunities for greenfield development following these connections reforms, where there'll be capacity available in certain regions of the UK and GB, where you can obtain a Gate 2 offer and secure a connection date for a solar or onshore wind project, for instance.
So fundamentally, this adds a lot of uncertainty to a lot of different projects. Your project will be affected in some way, whether that's beneficially moving forwards or being kicked back to Gate 1. What we can do is we can look at your projects and we can assess and we can work out whether or not it's going to be protected.
The CP2030 assessment that Blake Clough have developed can deliver to clients an Excel detailing all of the projects that their project is competing against within a zonal queue, including the relative orderings of those projects and their planning statuses. This gives the client a view of where they stand with respect to the capacity cutoff within that zone, and also we can assess the impact of what happens if I submit a planning application. How much will that improve my project standing, and what's the risk that this project faces at this time? For M&A opportunities, it's really valuable to get a view on, if you're considering purchasing a project, is it likely to be moved to an indicative connection offer next year? A really essential piece of information that's now needed when we conduct due diligence on a connection offer. Blake Clough has this tool available, and we can assess at transmission and distribution level across all of GB. That can be useful for developers that currently hold connection offers and want to see what can I expect from these reforms. We can de-risk some of the uncertainty that CP2030 is bringing to the industry for the next year by giving you a view of which of your projects are in a secure position, which of them are unfortunately hopeless and are very likely to be removed from the connections queue, and which of them are in kind of a grey area where continued investment at this stage, you can take actions that we can advise you on to improve its standing and improve the likelihood of it receiving a Gate 2 connection offer. We are constantly engaging with the industry, with developers, with NISO on CP2030. We've read the thousands of pages that have been published in and around this, or we have a channel of communication open with NISO and can engage with them directly on specific questions that clients might have. As soon as we're working with you on a CP2030 project, we're absolutely happy to spend the time to answer any of the questions that are in and around this subject, whether that's on timelines, specific mechanisms that will take place, what to expect, what's uncertain, highlighting what's still unclear within the industry. We've had years of experience on connection offer due diligence, the grid connections process, and CP2030 really lies at the center of all that. So we can bring that experience into our analysis, into how we engage with you as a developer, and the advice that we can give you following this. That includes things like considering the practical realities of when and where and how projects can be connected to the network that maybe isn't explicitly mentioned in the CP2030 documents. So Blake Clough can really bring our expertise in and have someone helping you as a developer.